Yeah, so I just want to speak about like being an older guy or being a younger guy. Is there a difference? I mean, there is, and there's not. I mean, for that space, it's all one. It's all the same. It doesn't even matter. Like the whole story doesn't matter. The timeline doesn't matter because being the space has nothing to do with this timeline. And in the same time, in our experiences as self, this timeline is so, it marks an absolute kind of, like you cannot get away getting older. I mean, that's the most, it's like what the Buddha said, aging, you cannot avoid sickness, you cannot avoid death, and you cannot avoid the feeling of loss, and you cannot avoid the loss, the letting go, the falling off, and that happens in aging. It's like a beautiful man once said, it's your invitation as existence. Let's go of you, for you to let go of existence. That's maybe the most beautiful description or wording of aging that you can imagine, because it's such an opportunity to age and to come into the older age. And I mean, also in terms of my life story, and in terms not just of my life story, but let's speak about like people who feel moved to, who kind of have it in them to be spiritual leaders of any way, of any kind, or spiritual leaders. So gurus or shamans or abuelitos or something like that, when that is your destiny, when you have that, like I have that kin with, well, there's two Mexican kin calendars. And when I'm the red serpent, and in that way is one, and then there's this other, I'm venado. Venado is, the guardian of the peyote, and venado is the spiritual guide. It's really the spiritual guide of this whole Mexican culture. It's very triangular, and it's very sun aligned, the alignment of the sun with the earth. It's very real and existent energies. And it also represents, to have that in the kin, to being a spiritual leader. And I tell you, to be a guru of any kind cannot be a guru when you're 20 or when you're 30. You just can't. There's really no way. It doesn't matter even if you're completely awakened. Like they say, Shankaracharya also, he was completely awakened, completely immersed in the eternal self, in the one with 8 years already. So, well, maybe he was an exception, but even that he can be a real guru, like a real transmission of the light. Just as a little baby is a guru, because it transmits light. And there are beings that come in as children with such a force, especially now, with such a power, such a light. So yes, that's so real and so available. And in the same time, what happens in this absolute of a timeline is maturation. You mature, you grow something up, you expand your vision, and that takes a certain amount of years, like just as it's pre-described, that when you come into the world, you go through the stage as baby, and then it's an infant, and then you grow up and you become a great child, and you become, and then you come into puberty, and it's all pre-described. And the same thing is for later years that are not your formative years, but that are actually the years where you come into formatting your being into this life. So not just growing up as a self through this life, but also through acquired wisdom, through being in wisdom, through practiced wisdom, through seasoned beingness. Like a child can be a brilliant beingness, and that just visualize, see the enlightened child. Yes, it's just light and it's just beautiful. It's brilliance in this world. And only as that brilliance comes into all of the forms of this world over the years in growing up, and after growing up, maturing and having your life, whichever life you live, but if you're living it as an awakened consciousness, that will produce something where the natural outcome is that you're a Baba, you're a giver, or a Mataji, but you're a giver of consciousness, because that is, it's just the way it works. When consciousness ascends, it includes everybody else, and which manifests in a kind of leadership. It's the ability also to channel codes through your own body consciously and direct them. A very young man cannot do that. His energy is too far out, too pushy, too forward, too life-oriented, enjoying too much, whatever you want to call it, the drive of life, the vital body is so strong in young age that to come into wisdom, you can come into awakening, into enlightenment as a young man, you can open into the everything as a young man. But for the everything to be brought into form, and for you to grow a self that's not just an ego, but a wise one, the one who carries the word, who knows the word, who is able, is the carrier of consciousness. That requires time in this world, but it's also the opportunity of aging. I mean, old age. Speaking about old age, but any aging, it starts. It starts with 40. Let's say, it starts with 40. It gets more and more and more, and it's unstoppable. And then your body will, in some way, be deteriorating. And wow. Like, even if you're not in that, you as a listener, even if you're young, come into that. Like, feel the sense of it already. Like in this meditation, how is it to really become old? And your body is not, you can't take it for granted anymore. Like, the girls look at you or whatever, I mean, you don't have maybe that life power, that strength, that all these things that maybe you take for granted. They're gone, and opportunities are also falling away because the time span becomes even smaller and smaller. So when you're really old age, it's wow, everything is so concentrated. If what you are being along the way is condensating your consciousness in a point that is of real value. You know, if you're not distracting your life and wasting yourself in life, in the illusion of life, that again, that is something that is very strong in young people, and it got to be that way. It got to be the way. You can't move through this life without illusions. You have to have illusions, and illusions need to be disappointed, and the disappointment needs to hurt, and all of that needs to open you into more. And that's the psychological, you know, drama of the human. And you got to transport yourself through that. There's no other way. You know, everything else is just bullshit, you know. Because even if you are enlightened with 8 years or with 12 years or whatever your age is, and you say, oh, come on, I know it already. It's all God and it's all love, and you got it, you know. But even then, especially then, you will be thrown through this, you know, this merciless machine of your timeline of getting older and older and older and die, you know. But then it's an unfolding of 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 more and more and more and more of you, like you, what you really are, is coming into this life, and it's opening life. So then the older you get, the more you blossom, you know. The more you open, the more is available, the more is there, you know. Yes, in the body it's less. There's less strength, there's less. I don't know even if there's less energy. Sometimes there's less energy, but I had very few energy often when I was very young. So even that can change, you know. And that is variable. You can become old and be super energetic. I mean, basically, you know how, and you need to eat well, and you need to do a lot of sports, and have good sex or whatever, be a good brahmachari and meditate and do a lot of yoga, stuff like this, so you can really be a healthy old man. You know, it's not needed to be sick, not really, but you need to start in time, man. Again, that's the merciless. That's why I call it merciless. It's the merciless of your timeline. If you're not taking care of your body when you're young, you will suffer that if you're old, whether you want or not. You know, whether you say you're being in the now, and you know your past doesn't matter, and have let gone everything and forgiven everything. Yes, but in the body, it will have had its mark. It's part of the merciless reality of, again, what the Buddha said, is the essence of pain, is that everything is deteriorating. It's the law of everything is, what's it called? You know what I mean? Perishable, you know. It's, it's all going down. Your life is going down into death. But what are you being in it? That's all that matters. You know, when you're going through that, the cycle of illusion, in falling in love and in being disappointed or being fulfilled, or one day being fulfilled, the next day being having it lost again, you know, through this whole cycling, it creates an integration, you know. It lets you integrate facets of reality, facets of consciousness that have you be more, instead of when you identify with the experience and hold on and you know, want to hold on to your life and put everything into this tension that so many of us are in. It's like the error of consciousness, like the virus in consciousness that you can experience yourself in, you know, as a reality. You can. That will then mean that when the older you get, the more you lose your energy, the more depressed you become, the more hopeless you become, the more helpless you become, the more, victim you become, the more frustrated you become. It didn't pay off what you did in your life. And again, that's merciless. Honestly, you can't help a person that is 80 years old. Even 70, 60, often 50 people here, 50-year-old people, you cannot even help them. What do I mean by that? They're so in their stories, so identified with this personal story, that the reality of being old will be one that is very dry and very frustrated. And that's just what it is. It's your opportunity as a being to be in that old man or in that old woman. And yeah, but you can, even there, you can shift. I'm not saying you cannot shift. You can shift at any age. You can. But that shift will include all that you've been carrying. Like, you've got to let go. And to let go of 80 years seems a lot more difficult than to let go of what you have with 20 years. But if with 20 years you didn't let go of what you had, with 80, the years you have to carry on your back will be so much heavier. And yeah, that's merciless. That's the mercilessness of age. The grace of it. So wherever you are in that timeline game, yeah, open. Just open to the one, and let's see and be how that transforms your whole time life line, and you experience as awareness that is not bound to any. While you're 45, maybe you're 63, maybe you're 17 and listening to this. It's whichever age you are. 29. I mean, just feel through the energies. 29, 34. Like, all of these numbers, you have either been or you will be. So just tune in. 42. 28. 50. 63. 73. 84. 87. 90. 91. 92. 93. 17. 90. 22. 24. 27. 28. 32. 34. 36. 37. 13. 12. 11. 10. 9. 7. 6.